Welcome everybody. Greg Peterson coming to you from the urban farm in the heart of Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm here with Miss Janis.
Hello, everybody. I'm Janis Norton. I'm the general manager of the urban farm, and I'm coming to you from my little place called Two Peas in a Pod up in northern Peoria, just north of Phoenix.
For those of you that are here on the live event, you can ask us questions. The questions go in the Q&A space. So there's a Q&A button at the bottom. The problem with putting them in chat is that
we kind of overlook them sometimes.
Yeah, we kind of overlook them sometime.
We'll do our best.
So back to what I was saying before we started recording about our fruit tree program. So I started this fruit tree program 22 years ago because you can go into most nurseries and every big box store and they will sell you a fruit tree that will either struggle here or it will never make fruit. And I just call bogus on that. So I started offering education in my living room, and it's turned into this. I think we have over 500 people registered for tonight, and a lot of interest. So thank you all for that. Jewel says, yes, I dug up my 5-in-1 apple that wouldn't produce any apples here. Yeah, because there's only two apples that will actually successfully produce a nice amount of apples. So right.
My job tonight is to help keep us focused because we've got a lot coming at you.
Greg, and I can talk for hours.
And you can talk for us. And we've got a class that we've designed and we've put in as much as we can fit into like an hour's worth of time. So we are going to go ahead and start. And let's start the class. We'll tackle some of the questions in the comments.
Perfect.
Section.
Yes, thank you, Miss Janis. All right, let's see. Share screen.
I'm going to hide my video.
All right. There's a way to do this to make it work.
You know, we've been so busy doing other things, we've gotten distracted on this part.
Right.
I'm seeing everything.
You're seeing everything?
I'm seeing your side.
All right.
You shared
let's
the
try
wrong
that
screen.
again then. Okay, cool. Share screen. How about them there apples?
That works.
All right, cool. Cool. All right. So what we are here for tonight is our class called Planting, Watering, and Fertilizing. And you get both Janis and I. Janis is going to teach some of it. I'll teach some of it. Janis may jump in occasionally. So for you that are here live, please put your questions in the Q&A section. All right. Now I have something covering. Sorry, guys.
Oh, we saw it perfectly. You just couldn't see it, huh?
Yeah, exactly. You guys could see it. I couldn't. All right, let's try this again. There we go. All right, you're seeing the good stuff now, right, Janis?
Yes, we are.
All right, cool. So this is an apple hedge that is no longer, in these pictures, is no longer here at the house. It was actually planted in the neighbor's yard next door, and it aged out after about 18 years of not being cared for well enough. Yep, that was me. But apples do really well here. There's two varieties, Anna's and Dorset Goldens. They're the only kind I'd plant here. All right, there we go. So tonight is about planting, watering, and fertilizing. And so let's start with planting. And the first thing you need to do is pre-dig a square hole. Just note that square holes do a lot better for the roots than round holes. And you're going to see pictures of round holes. But when you see that, think, all right, square hole. And what we suggest that you do is dig a hole about 2 feet by 2 feet by about 1 foot deep. So you're not in a pot right now. This was pots are for citrus. This is for bare root. So if you're picking up bare root trees from us, a good size hole to start with is 2 feet by 2 feet by 1 foot deep. And then we're going to ask you to do a perk test. A perk test is a test where you stick a hose in the hole and fill it up. And then see how long it takes to drain. And in theory, it should drain in, you know, a few minutes to a few hours. And if there's still standing water in it, like 3/4 of the way to the top or to the top after 24 hours, you are going to send an email to fruittrees@urbanfarm.org, and I will send you a link on our website on how to deal with that. But generally what you have to do is you have to dig a bigger hole, dig a deeper hole, because what you're running into is caliche. But quite honestly, we don't run into a whole lot of issues around that. But you still want to do a perk test. And then your job is to create healthy soil. There's 5 components of healthy soil. It's dirt, organic matter, airspace, water, and everything that's alive in the soil. And I have a whole class that I do on this, but we're going to just jump in on what you do with your trees. So for your trees, this is what goes in the planting hole. What we suggest is that you dig your hole 2 foot by 2 foot, but 1 by 1 foot deep, do your perk test. You save 40% of the native soil, put it in the wheelbarrow, and then you replace, and it's usually about 2 bags of planting mix in the hole. And what this does is this adds organic matter in your planting hole, which is really, really important. If you're trying to grow anything in straight desert dirt, good luck. It's just not going to work. And if it does work, the trees will struggle, and just do this. 60% planting mix, 40% native soil. We do have our Farmer Greg's planting mix, and we got, I don't know, I think 10 pallets of it at the warehouse right now. So you're, when you come to pick up your trees, we have plenty of planting mix for you. You're going to put in the hole 2 pounds of azomite. Azomite is a micronutrient vitamin pill for your tree. You're going to put 2 pounds of worm castings. That's micronutrients and soil life, and 2 ounces of mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is soil life. And what you do is you put all that in the wheelbarrow and you mix it up really good. And before we go on to the next slide, I want to bring on Janis just for a moment for something we call the root drench.
We are so excited about what's happening with the liquid amendments, and when we're using these products in our tree care and with our everywhere we're using it, we're seeing dramatic results. So what we have is a recipe to improve the success. The basics for planting are those first 5 bullets. Then we're going to say for improved success, what we recommend for your bare root trees is to drench them in a bucket or a wheelbarrow or a big basin or something for about 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, basically the time it takes you to kind of get everything else mixed up, in a solution that has about 5 gallons of water and 3 capfuls or 15 milliliters of both essence and soul. So put that together in the 5 gallons, drench your bare root trees, let them sit there for about 30 minutes, get everything else together, and then when you're ready to put it in the hole, your roots are nice and soaked with a good nutrient base that's going to give it an excellent way to wake up. Now, if you have a potted tree, it's a little bit differently. You do not want to soak a potted tree, otherwise your dirt will just fall off the roots. So what we're saying for that is to fix about a gallon of water and put ½ ounce of essence, heart, and soul in this. You want a little bit more because you're concentrating this liquid in a smaller area and you don't have it's not connecting on the roots. So about a ½ ounce of essence, heart, and soul in a gallon of water. If your plants are already awake, like if you're doing this for your citrus trees or a tree that's not dormant, then go ahead and put a ½ ounce of noble gills as well. Put this in a gallon of water and then spray or splash this with like a cup or something onto the sides and bottom of your hole. That's going to create a nutrient zone that is going to explode with life, and your roots will start growing out towards it.
And we'll cover, so she's using heart and soul and essence. We're going to cover that here in a little while.
Yeah, good point. So this is our liquid amendments. and you've sprayed it or splashed it around the sides of the hole for the potted ones. Now, if you have the bare root or the potted, once you go to the next step, which is actually potting or planting your tree with those 5 first bullets, after you've got your tree planted and before you put any kind of wood chips down, you're going to pour the leftover water solution over your roots. This will help get rid of your air pockets. If you have the potted solution, which is the 1 gallon, just go ahead and do that 1 gallon on each tree. If you have the 5 gallons, you can divide that up to about 5 trees. And that'll help. And then you're going to follow that up with a good deep watering before you put the wood chips.
And there's a deep explanation of all of this in your member area, which I'll have that URL for you here in a little while. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to talk about how deep to plant your tree. This is really, really, really important. I can't tell you how many times over the past 15 years, people have sent me emails and they've planted it to this point right here. This is the graft union. This is the rootstock. This is the fruiting wood or the scion wood right here. If you bury this graft union, the tree is going to die. The tree will absolutely die. So what you'll notice on your bare root trees is that there's this area that's darker and an area that's lighter where the trees were planted at before, and you want to plant them to right here. And you're going to plant them on the mound in the middle of your hole. So this is the way that I want you to plant them. If you're planting in gravel or dirt and raising your garden bed up or the basin around the tree up, this is the graft union right here. This is where you plant it to. And then the woody mulch for my 6-6 rule goes around it, around the basin like this. If you're planting it down, so you're cutting a divot in the grass or in dirt like this. Again, here's the graft union. And the big thing I want you to notice is this is dirt here. And it's not woody mulch up against the trunk of the tree. So we have dirt against the trunk of the tree. That's really important. And then woody mulch. And I'll talk about my 6-6 rule here in a little while. Here's a picture. Go ahead, Janice.
I want to call attention in that last graph, in that last chart. I want to call attention. It says in gravel and in grass. If you look out on the edges, that's where the gravel is, and that's where the grass is. That is 3 feet away from the tree.
Yep. This is a 6-foot diameter basin here. Cool. Thank you, Janice. All right, here's a well-planted one. And you'll notice this is woody mulch all the way around it. This is dirt. It's kind of hard to see. This is dirt, but here's a close-up picture of it. And this was actually one of our clients that sent me this picture. So that is the proper way to plant. This happens to be a citrus. All right. And really what you need to know long-term for the success is to grow your soil like a forest. And we do that by adding lots and lots and lots of organic matter in the hole when we plant the plant, and then add lots and lots of woody mulch around the basin. Now, woody mulch goes in your basin, planting mix goes in the hole. You never want to put woody mulch in the hole with the tree. And one point I wanted to make here, see this white stuff here? That's life. That's the stuff we're after. The reason I grabbed this and took a picture of it was because that is what we're looking for. If you have mushrooms growing around your trees, that is a very, very, very good thing. Mushrooms are good. All right. And so this is my 6-6 rule. That means 6 inches of woody mulch, 6-foot diameter basin. This was an apricot that was planted about, I'm going to say this came in about 4 years ago, and it was pruned down at the beginning when they planted it. This is 6 months after they planted it. It was about this size. Look how much life has been added to that tree. This is the kind of growth that we're seeing when the trees are planted correctly with the planting mix, with the mycorrhiza, azomite, worm castings, with the foliar feeding. This is what you can expect when you treat your trees appropriately. And here's the 6'6" basin in another way. This is more like an 8-foot basin. This is a dwarf peach tree with the rootstock that was trying to take over. And so I had them cut that back right down to the base of the tree. But again, this is a 6-month picture. This was a bare root, bare tree. And 6 months later, this is the kind of growth that they got out of it by planting it correctly. So here's a basin in the grass. Now, this basin isn't quite 6 feet. It's more like 5 feet. And this was done about a decade ago before I stumbled across the 6-foot basin. But this is my apricot tree. This was 3 years in. So we planted it. And so the 3rd year, this is the kind of growth that I've got. We're in year 5 now. And the tree trunk on this is a good 6-inch diameter, and it's taller than the house. And yes, I talk about keeping our trees small, but in some cases, we don't want to do that. And I have my reasons for keeping this one bigger, which I share with you in one of my other classes. And that's Kismet, my pooch. She's a dingo. Here's a great start. What I would add to this basin, so we got a 6-foot diameter basin around the edge, and woody mulch. Add lots of more woody mulch and probably some shade for the 1st year on this particular tree. Shade like they put on this tree right here. Especially if you're in a super hot microclimate, which a block wall, if you're planting close to a block wall, that would be a super hot microclimate.
I want to call attention to the shade that we're putting up at this point for these young trees is temporary. You
Yes.
don't need to stress to make some permanent thing. You're looking at 1 to 2 years of shade, and you'll be happy.
And there are actually 3 things you could do prior to putting up shade. Woody mulch, 6 inches of woody mulch, 6-foot diameter basin. Number 2, plant cowpeas, which we're going to talk about in a little while. And number 3 is wrap the trunk. And what we're finding is that is, in most situations, that shade is enough for your trees. All right, we're going to jump into watering now. I have a watering methodology. I did not invent this. I observed this in nature. And so where I observed this at was in flood irrigation. I grew up on a flood irrigated property in Central Phoenix, and planted fruit trees starting in 1975 there. And I noticed that they survived and thrived just fine on the watering methodology that was, which is once a month in the winter, twice a month in the summer. I know it freaks people out, but if you're planting right, fertilizing right, it's probably enough. But this isn't the 6-6 rule is a rule. This is a guideline. And so what it looks like is you planted your citrus back in October. You're going to plant your deciduous here in January and February. And then you're going to start watering the trees once a month. So when you plant your trees, you're going to water them. And you're going to wait 30 days. And then you're going to water them again. And you're going to wait 30 days and you're going to water them again. And around May 1st or so, when it starts getting really hot, I want to have you water them twice a month. And then I'm going to have you get a moisture meter. And the moisture meter is
cover that in the next section and how we adjust for our different types of soil.
Yep, exactly. We're going to cover that in a minute, but you're going to get this moisture meter, or you're just going to watch the tree. Because here's the deal, and here's the reason this methodology is so important. An overwatered tree and an underwatered tree, the damage looks the same. I'll say that again. An overwatered tree and an underwatered tree, the damage looks the same. So you're watering your tree, and people regularly tell me they're watering them 3 or 4 times a week, and it's like, oh my God, that's way too much water. And the tree starts drooping. What are you going to do? You're going to add more water because you think it needs more water. It droops more, you add more water, and before long you have a dead tree. When you're overwatering it, the roots rot away and the tree can't uptake water. So if you're following this watering methodology, start watching the tree on June 1st. And you water it on June 1st, and then by June 10th, if it's drooping a little bit, you know you're not overwatering that tree. So it's pretty straightforward and simple. Let's see here. I'm going to just jump ahead to your first slide there. Canopy size, Janice.
Oops, got to find the mute button there. All right,
Yeah.
so canopy size is going to determine a lot about how much your tree is drinking. And it changes based on the size of your tree and whether or not it's a tree or a bush. But you're looking, if you see this chart, depending on how wide your bush is, you're looking at anywhere from 11 to 38 gallons on your tree for each individual watering. Now, that gets kind of tricky. So go to the next one, Greg. Greg, there we go. So if you're starting to try and figure that out and you have different types of irrigation and you're using the ones with emitters, your emitter size, how many you have, how fast it goes, it's going to change per tree. Now, the reason why I want to bring this up is your water irrigation cannot be the same for your trees as it is for your flowers and your bushes. You're just not going to be doing the same thing, and definitely not the same as your grass. So they should be on separate lines. And there's a way to calculate it out. There's a whole chart that's accessible through different ways that you can find it. I've got one that I use for my yard. It gets kind of tricky. If you want to do it the simple way, the easy way that doesn't take so much work, Greg and I try to do things as simple as possible if we can. Let's not try to spend the time calculating this for each tree. Greg? I'm trying to shorten that. I go into it a little bit more in another class, but I'm trying to shorten it for tonight so we can cover some more stuff. Because the important thing is water depth. The soil needs to be moisturized down deep enough so that the roots get the moisture all the way where they're drinking. Now, if you live in an area like Phoenix, you are getting very salty water. Our water literally comes from the Salt River Project. There is a lot of salt in our water, and it can damage our trees. So when you're watering, you need to make sure the water goes far enough down to make sure those salts get washed past the root zone, because salt can kill your tree. So for a little bush or maybe a brand new tree, you need to get the water down to about 2 feet. If you're planting if you've got a full-size tree, that water needs to get down to about 3 feet to make sure that that taproot and all those feeder roots are nice and wet. And it goes out far. Those roots go out quite far. Greg, next one.
Perfect.
All right. I want to cover right now the differences in our type of soil, and specifically there's different soils of sand and clay. Those are the two extremes that end up affecting how our watering is going to stay in the soil. Water goes through sand quickly. Those big particles, you can feel them. They feel kind of gritty in your fingers when you're rubbing your fingers on, if you have some in your hand. The water goes through it super fast. It goes straight down, straight through it. If you have clay soil tends to layer on top of itself, and it's so fine, you can almost feel a little sticky, a little smooth. The water has a harder time getting through it. So it takes a lot longer for the water to go from the top of the soil down lower. That's important when you're trying to make sure you're getting down to that 2 feet. And you can see on this little lower right picture, a grain of sand, which is so tiny compared to a grain of clay. This picture doesn't do it justice. It is enormous, the difference between it, but it's enough to make a tremendous difference on how the water goes through it. Next one, Greg. Okay, now if you have 3 different kinds of soil, we can look at this. When you have sandy soil and you put, like a gallon of water on your soil, that's going to go straight down. You can get down 12 inches in sand in the same time or quicker than it goes through 5 inches of clay. But look at that picture. It goes straight down like a point, like an arrow spear, a spear of an arrow. The loamy soil, which is the the ideal type of soil. It kind of goes out and down around the same progress. The clay soil, as it goes down, it's also going out, which is good for those outside roots, but it's not good for the roots that are down deep. So what you take away, what I'm taking away from that, and I want you to understand this when you're looking at your own soil, sandy soil requires less water, but more often. So if you have a high sandy soil and your trees, like Greg's saying, about once a month, but if you have a high sandy soil, you might have to go with that about every 3 weeks because the water is going to go through faster. And that's what it means. You just do it a little bit more often and you won't have to put as much water on it. Clay soil is going to require a little bit more water because it takes longer to get through, but you can water less frequently. I have high clay soil. So when I water, I will turn that on and I will let it go and I will fill it up, fill up my basins and then some, but then I don't have to water. I can go maybe 4 or 5 weeks and still be okay on my watering because the soil is still retaining a lot of that water. But I need to put it on in such a way that it'll go down deep. Next one, Greg.
Yeah, and this is one of the better slides right here in our
Okay.
whole presentation.
This is important if you have clay soil because clay soil is really, really prevalent in our valley here in Phoenix. And our trees die because we're not getting enough water down deep and the roots aren't going down deep to get away from the heat. So here's what you do. In order to make the watering of clay soil more efficient, you're going to put on your water in 2 different episodes of the same day or the same period. So if you're watering it once a month, you're going to water it one day, give it a good deep watering as much as you can that one day, and then let it sit for a while. And come back to it a day or 2 later and do it a second dose. And what happens is by spacing your single watering event over 2 to 3 days, your water can goes down and the heaviness of the water, the gravity will bring it down and it keeps just going. It keeps just going. But it takes a while to get through that and you're giving it a chance to get there. And then if you plan on doing a 1-2 punch on watering in your clay soil, you are going to have much happier trees. So
Cool.
that's my clay soil trick.
Yeah, thank you, Janice.
And you can test with a soil probe to see if that worked.
Oh yeah, and we
Oh,
have
I was
soil.
going to say, I'm sorry, I was going to say the moisture meter and the soil probe. I'm going to say that really quick. The moisture meter, you can use a moisture meter, stick it in your soil, and it'll tell you if the soil is dry enough to water again. If you're getting a high water reading on a moisture meter, it's too early to water again. And if you're getting a low reading, then yes, it's time to water. The soil probe tells you if you've watered enough. That's what you stick down in the ground. It travels easily through wet soil and it will get you to it'll identify how deep the water is getting.
Cool.
All right.
All right, now we're going to jump into fertilizing, and there's 2 different kinds of fertilizing we're going to talk about. There's granular fertilizing and there's foliar fertilizing. And I'll bring Janice on here in a minute for the foliar fertilizing. Janice, in her infamous wisdom, put together the nutrition schedule. You can get laminated copies of the nutrition schedule, or you can download them from your member site. Anybody that has purchased anything off of our shopping cart has access to download this. So just know that you don't have to know the specifics of how to fertilize. This is just the generalities, and we've got lots more in your member area. So,
and anybody who purchases the combo will get the download for free. I mean, it'll come right in your email.
Perfect. Thank you. So granular fertilizer, either bioflora or tanks. And we want to fertilize on Valentine's Day, Tax Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day. And you're going to use 1 pound or 2.5 cups of organic fertilizer. We have bioflora and tank super mix per 1-inch trunk diameter. So here's what that looks like. This is that apricot tree in my front yard. At 3 years old, it went from 1 inch to 4 inches in about 3 years. And this is what happens when you fertilize appropriately. So for this tree, we have a 4-inch trunk at the base. So a 4-inch trunk times 2.5 cups. So if you're measuring it in cups, you're going to put 10 cups of fertilizer on this thing. Valentine's Day, Tax Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day. Oh, and I don't have Labor Day on the list down below, but 4 times.
Oops.
Go ahead, Janice. Okay.
No, just oops, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
That we were talking about that earlier and we missed that. That's all.
Okay. And the granular fertilizers to use are organic only. Organic fertilizers nurture the life in the soil. Non-organic fertilizers negatively impact it.
And
So
organic fertilizers are also a slow release.
Mhm.
So that's how they come. They don't damage your plants as much. You can actually overfeed by accident and not worry about hurting your plants because it's a slow release. If you put too much inorganic fertilizer, you can damage your plants because the salts and the other stuff that's in it is too shocking for your tree, and you have to be really close to those measurements. Just do organic, you'll be happier.
Yeah, and you need a balanced fertilizer. That's another important thing. I did a garden consult with a lady about 3 or 4 months ago, and she planted her fruit trees maybe 5 years ago, got them from me, and none of her citrus were producing fruit. And what we deciphered was she was using a high nitrogen fertilizer, which was growing all kinds of green, but no fruit. So you need a balanced fertilizer. We have tanks, which sells in a 10-pound, and that comes from Tucson. And we have BioFlora, which sells in a 50-pound bag. And you can find them at store.urbanfarm.org/granular. You can't click on this page. That apparently is an old slide, but there's our granular fertilizers. I get this question a lot. People ask me, how do I get the fertilizer underneath the woody mulch? And the other thing is, if you have dogs, they're going to love to roll in the fertilizer. So what I do is I take a sharpshooter shovel. That picture on the right is a sharpshooter shovel. Is a nice long bladed shovel. I stick it in the ground. I rock it back and forth, pull it out, and I'll put, if I'm putting 4 pounds of fertilizer on a tree, I'll put 1 pound in each hole, and I'll do that 4 times around the tree. I know some of you are thinking, well, what about the roots? If you were to do that all the way around the tree, that might create a problem. But if you're just in 3 or 4 places around the basin of the tree and do this, if you hit a root, it's just not a problem, I promise. Been doing it for years. And then you cover it up. So that's how you get past the gravel on top. Just as a side note, I noticed that people are putting questions in the chat. We don't see them there all the time. So if you want your questions addressed, please put them in the Q&A. All right. And then we have foliar feeding. Foliar feeding actually gets sprayed on the trunk and the leaves of the tree. And you can actually foliar fertilize this time of year. In fact, all of our trees, if they didn't get foliar fertilized yesterday on the lot, they're going to get foliar fertilized tomorrow. We're gonna use this pump sprayer, and thanks to our friend Glenn, he turned us on to this thing right here, and we have plenty of these in stock. We call it our sprayer modify kit, and this is a 2-gallon pump sprayer. It's mine actually, and it goes through 2 gallons in about 10 minutes, whereas the old wand took forever. And so this is a great modification. And the different foliars are the noble gills, the soul, the heart, and the essence. And we have a whole class on foliar feeding in your member area. Here's the basics. And this says only feed at dusk. This was for a summertime class. It is temperature dependent. So it depends on what time of year you're going to feed, right, Janice?
That's correct. There's a zone of temperature that is the most effective. 70, around 70 degrees is going to be the most effective because that is when your tree is breathing. I've got more information on that. We're actually going to go in depth on foliar feeding a little bit more on our next tree chat in February.
Oh, very good. So next month's tree chat is all about foliar feeding.
Yeah, we're going to cover a little bit about gills, and we're also going to cover foliar for sure.
We should bring Anthony in from High
Yeah.
Creations. All right, cool. And I hear Janice printing invoices for you guys to start picking up your trees this week. I'll bet that's what's going on. All right, and then I showed you the nutrition schedule. This is again free with your purchase. You can also buy a laminated copy. I mentioned earlier, one of the single most important things that you can do for shading your tree is shade the ground underneath it. This was actual temperatures in my front yard in 2017. That's sweet potatoes in the background. You can also use cowpeas. Sweet potatoes you buy at the grocery store, make sure they're organic and cut them up and plant them in February, or cowpeas. And cowpeas grow wild here at the urban farm. So I harvest them every year and make them available in packets. This is packaged as the Great American Seed Up packets. And so when you're picking up your trees, we will have cowpeas available for you. So I got this couple more quick pictures, and then we will get on to questions. So there's this guy, and he's done everything per Urban Farm's instructions and still got a dead tree. Sometimes it happens. That was me, by the way. That was a tree in my front yard that didn't make it. And it just, sometimes nature has a different thing in order. So we're here for you with questions. I regularly have people email me pictures of their trees and do quick diagnostics on it. So we're here for you. And the trees that we have in our fruit tree program are all Urban Farm Greg proven. I've grown them all here in the desert, and they will produce fruit in 3 years if you do what we tell you to do. So, and then there's this one, and I've been showing this one for years, and this is stunning, the difference that it made. So Farmer Rick contacted me a couple of years ago, and he said, earlier this year, you helped me out with my dying lime tree. I watched your webcast drastically alter the ground around the tree, bought mulch and fertilizer and supplements from us, and this is the difference that 4 months makes. He made a bigger basin. The only other thing I would do with this is I would plant the cowpeas or sweet potatoes in the basin around it, but look at the difference that made.
Stunning.
So our ultimate goal is getting fruit. Put your questions in the Q&A. We're going to jump off of the PowerPoint here in a minute and take your questions. But to check availability, you can go to store.urbanfarm.org, and your member site is theurbanfarm.customerhub.com, and that's actually on the front page of the shopping cart, is it not, Janice?
It should be. It's listed under member resources.
Very good. Perfect. We're here to help as in many ways as we can. That's, I hate it when a tree dies.
We get perverse pleasure out of it.
All right. I don't know that I'd go there, but something like that. So, man, we have a bunch of questions. Let's see how far we can get. You want to jump in and trade them with me, Janice?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay.
Ahmad has a question about one peach in Phoenix. He has room. Is it one Florida Prince or Desert Gold?
Desert Gold.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, especially the Desert Gold that we got this year. Oh my gosh. I have never seen fruit trees. I've been doing this 22 years. I've never seen fruit trees come in this big.
Okay, so we are literally just finishing up inspecting, and I'm still doing inventory to make sure I've got everything counted and everything. But Greg, they were huge.
Yeah.
And you asked Tom why? What did he say? Why were these trees so much bigger this year?
He said they fertilized them constantly. They feed them
Yeah.
constantly.
Feed them constantly. And
Yeah.
we feed them here with foliar feeding and 4 times a year with granular. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
I'm seeing results in my own yard. That's great.
Oh my gosh. So 3 years ago, we went to Tom and my other mentor, Tom Spellman, is with Dave Wilson Nursery, and Scott Murray. And they both independently told me foliar feed. You need to be
Mhm.
foliar feeding the trees because of the heat that we get here in the summertime. The heat is treacherous on our trees, so we have to do that. Some of you might be thinking, all right, the foliar feed for a bundle of 4 bottles, I think it's $118. Is that what it is, Janice? And
118 gets you the 3 foliar feeds and the heart for free.
And the heart for free. And that may seem like a lot, but the thing is it goes a very long way. Goes a very long way. Between the 4 of them, you're getting a gallon of nutrients, and you're putting like an ounce of it in a gallon of water. Yes.
1 quart is enough for 10 trees for a full year of soil, 1/4 soil.
There you go.
1 quart of essence is enough for 30 trees for a full year following our tree care program. And I've got more on that.
Oh my gosh.
Part goes a little bit faster, but yeah.
Wow. Thanks for that. All right. Rana wants to know, please cover.
Marked them all.
Not all
Sorry,
of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Rana wants to know, please cover tips regarding trees we are picking up this month, as well as grapes. I think we covered all of our tips. You're going to come down, you're going to see us and pick up your trees and take them home and plant them. Yes.
You want to plant them within 1 to 2 days because you don't want them to sit there. They're going to be in black plastic bags. You definitely don't want those sitting in the sun. You don't want these roots drying out. Just take them home and plant them.
Yeah. Yeah. The bare root trees, they need to go, you need to have your holes pre-dug and they need to go in the ground. So thank you for that.
Yes. We tried to dig a hole when I was first starting this yard, and all of a sudden we ran into a problem, and I ended up having a boulder that was this big in the ground. Talk about having to slow you down.
Pre-dig your holes. Yeah. Pre-dig your holes before you come and get your trees. That's really good. How close to the trunk should you put mulch? The mulch should not touch the trunk. How thick of a layer should you place in the basin? At least 6 inches. 8 inches is better. That's my 6-6 rule. 6 foot diameter basin, 8 inches of 6 foot. Listen, I'm already 6 inches of woody mulch. 8. Oh my God, I'm all messed up. We're all tired because we've been working so much on the
6 inches deep, 6 inches, 6 feet wide.
Thank you.
I'm not sure where the 8 came. Rana says, how long do we soak the bare root trees in the root drench? 30 minutes is a nice goal. If you end up going a little over or less, no less than 15, 30 is a good shot.
Perfect. Jewel says, I just pulled out my cowpeas today. Here's the cool thing about cowpeas. They love the heat. They love the hot weather. And they grow from about February or March through until December, when they die back. They're an annual.
The first freeze.
They're an annual. So if you let them go to seed and they'll drop seeds in your yard, they'll come back year after year after year, just like they do in my yard. She says, should I compost them? Absolutely. Beans and cowpeas are nitrogen fixers. They're pulling nitrogen out of the soil and out of the air. You definitely want to
into the soil. Yeah.
Actually, they're pulling nitrogen from the soil as they grow and out of the air. So yes, you definitely want. She says, or should I chop them up in little pieces and throw them below the fruit trees? I don't even chop them up. I just leave them underneath the fruit trees and I let them break down. It becomes part of mulch for next year.
Honestly, I'm too busy in December and January to worry about it. So I just let it die back and it takes care of itself.
Jewel also says, if I leave the stalk and with the roots in, will the cowpeas regrow? They will not. This is an annual plant. It's just like any other bean or pea.
Yeah. And you don't want to pull them out. You want to let them just chop. If you're going to do it, just chop them and let the roots die in the soil.
Yeah, exactly. Kari has problems with boring insects killing her fruit trees. What can you do? There's a couple things. You can wrap the trunk. That keeps them from boring in. There's actually something that we've talked about doing called a biodynamic
paste?
tree paste that you can paint on it. Painting the trunk helps, as well as setting traps. We have borer traps.
We don't have a lot of those this year. We didn't get any from our dealer. Actually, I don't think we have any right now that we can sell. We didn't get any from.
All right, we'll have to, we can
backdated.
order some for people.
Yeah.
Best tasting donut peach for Phoenix area, the Saturn or the Swaze Swirl?
No Saze swirls came in this year, but the Saturn.
Yeah, we have Saturns. So Glenn, here's the thing. This is the reason I started the program. There's three things you need to know about when you're planting trees: chill hours, when the fruit ripens on the tree. What's the third thing, Janice?
Rootstock.
And the rootstock. Thank you. My brain went blank there. Literally, we have been working 14-hour days the past week to get your trees ready for you.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that all of those things apply when you're buying a donut peach, but we have Saturn peaches, right, Janice?
Saturn peaches, we have a few of them left. Yes, and they're an early peach, so that's important.
Okay. Diana wants to know, is it best to mix the nutrients into the 60-40 soil? Yes. You take the azomite mycorrhiza worm castings planting mix, native soil, mix it all up in the wheelbarrow and put it in the
And
hole.
organic fertilizer. We want you to put organic fertilizer in there now as well. And put it in the bottom of the hole right when you're filling it. Yes. Terry says, I may have planted my lemon tree incorrectly below the graft union. My tree has produced lemons for the past 2 years. However, this year there's only 2 lemons. Is this tree doomed? Ooh, it's been there for 2 years.
Terry, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a close-up picture of the base of the trunk and send it to me. Fruit trees, plural, at urbanfarm.org. And I'll be able to tell you better.
Send it as a close-up.
Yeah, if it's that old and still thriving, yeah, it probably is not a problem.
And Greg, put in the subject line, Greg, pictures you asked for.
Yes, exactly. Because I get about 200 emails a day.
We are swamped with emails. We are missing them if we don't have something shouting at us.
Wanda wants to know what happens if there's wood chips mixed into the hole where she planted her tree. It negatively impacts the tree because the wood chips take nitrogen to break down, so it's swiping the nitrogen away from the tree. If that happened, I would probably throw more fertilizer on it, organic fertilizer. That will help.
Yeah, and wood chips are going to they're going to attract the type of bugs that are going to eat the wood chips. And if you can get it out of the hole, it's better. It's up high, awesome. Down low, try to avoid that.
Yes, Aaron. The water methodology that we have is for all trees, newly planted trees, or ones that have been.
You just watch your soil. If your soil is drawing it away too fast, if there's something nearby that's drawing away too fast, you might have to supplement it. But watch your tree, and it's a guideline that's going to be dependent on your own soil and then what is drawing water out of your soil. The wood chips help slow down that water drain too, the water evaporation. Let's talk about how close to plant trees. We got several questions on how close to plant trees.
All right. You can put them 18 inches apart. It's called planting multiple trees in one hole. And if you're going to do that, you either put 2 in like this or 3 in a triangle with them pointing out a little bit. And what'll happen is they'll grow in after a few years and it'll look like one tree. So you can do that.
With peaches, with plums, you like trees. Peaches and plums can go together because they're kind of similar. But several peaches, several plums, apples.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to do this with citrus and deciduous.
What's that, Janice?
And you're not going to want to do this with citrus and deciduous together. That's not going to really work.
Oh, right, exactly.
Because they're not going to be doing. Also, mulberries, grapes, they grow differently. So that type of planting isn't going to work for those type of things. So you want to have trees that grow similar. Mulberries grow to be quite large and wide.
Yes.
Different ones. So great on our website. I think that I looked at it this morning. It looks like that video might be down. I'm going to try and fix that. But there's a beautiful video with Greg showing how to grow the dwarf black mulberry.
Oh, yes.
With different ways that he does it. It's a fabulous video to show you how those grow, and picture the end result of a tree. And that can give you some idea of how close to plant them. But most trees, if you're going to be planting for an orchard, imagine your full tree and you're going to want to be able to walk through them maybe to gather the fruit all the way around. So what, 5 feet?
10
Greg?
feet, 10 feet if you want to walk between them.
Yeah,
4 to 6 feet if you want to hedge.
Imagine your tree itself is about 5 feet wide, or space can go out to about 5 feet. So that's where you would have that space to go through it.
I'm looking
and
up.
grapes grow long.
Yeah. I'm looking up that mulberry question that or video that you had. Anonymous says, my blood orange tree has tiny leaves and very small fruit. Could this be a watering problem? Here's what I want you to do. Take a picture, send it to me, because it's probably been planted without a basin in gravel or dirt or grass. And there is a fix for it. And I'm going to put that fix. We shot a video on how to fix it. And I'm going to grab that and put it in the chat box right now. If you have a broken tree basin, if your basin if your tree isn't planted correctly, go check out this video. Don't do it while we're in class, but there we go. Hold on, try again. There we go. That's in the chat. That is how to fix your tree basin. All right, we talked about spacing. Soil probe. Tell us how to use a soil probe, Janice.
Okay, a soil probe is a piece of metal, usually steel, that is 3 feet long. The ones that we have are graduated every foot with a little notch so you can see where the 1 foot mark is, and it has a nice handle on it that's not going to bend. It's important that this not bend. So what happens is you're going to take your soil probe over and you're going to stick it in the basin away from the root ball, and you're going to put it right in the basin and lean on it. And you're going to do this a day or so after you've watered. When you lean on it, the soil probe itself, the pointy end, will start going down beneath the soil, and it just goes down as far as the moist soil is, because it can travel through the soil particles that are moist. When it hits soil that's dry, it doesn't have the ability to move those aside. The water won't allow those soil particles to move, and you've reached your depth. So as far as down as it will go, that's how far the water is. And that's your soil probe. And you can do this with any type of long, skinny rod type metal, like a rebar or something like that. But if it's smooth, it's better. We've got ours that are graduated. You can find them in a lot of different places. You can make your own. It's awesome. And that's a soil probe. It tells you if you've watered enough. A moisture meter tells you when to water.
Cool. Thank you. I just put the mulberry trees and bushes video that you mentioned in the chat box as well. Nylene
For those
wants
of you who aren't seeing our chat box or maybe seeing this later, you can find it on Greg's YouTube channel under Greg Peterson. And we're going to put it back up on our store in the next day or so. Make sure that the link is there. If you go to the mulberry, the dwarf black mulberry on our store, we'll have that reactivated.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon, but we got 21 questions. So let's see how many we can get through.
Chris Johnson says, can you determine the soil type you have with the perk test? No, you can't tell this type of soil, but you can see how fast your water goes through. A percolation test before you actually plant something is great. I planted 13 trees and then it rained as I was finishing that last tree, and then realized that my soil wasn't draining. Pulled all my trees back out, put them in pots, and it took 4 days for that soil to drain a little bit. So I definitely had a problem and I had to fix that. But a percolation test can give you an idea of how fast your soil drains.
Okay, we still have 21 questions, so you got to make your answers like this.
Yes, go.
So Nylene says, is sawdust a good as woody mulch? As long as it's sawdust that is from wood and not other kinds of materials. Like,
yes,
press
Clean
wood or something.
sawdust. Clean sawdust is yes, and you're going to want to try and mix it up a little bit because sawdust can make a solid layer and not let the water in. So poke it up a little bit. It's good. Steve says, is azomite used at planting, or when else can it be used?
You can use it at the Valentine's Day, Memorial Day, Tax Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day. Absolutely.
See, the thing about the soil here is we do have minerals, and in a lot of places, we do have the minerals in our soil, but it's not accessible. Azomite is beautiful because it's so micronized that the trees and the plants can use it faster.
Raina wants to know, should she be concerned about the native trees? Uh-oh, where'd it go? Near her.
Okay, while you're looking
other
for that one,
trees.
Marie says, should I add a little sand to my planting mix? How much watering on a bare root tree? Those are your two questions. Sand to your planting mix, not in our valley. If our valley has a high calcium content, and if you add sand to a calcium soil in your area, you don't know how much you have, you can end up creating more caliche or cement soil. Don't add sand if you don't have to.
Do we still, are we out of plums, Janice? Ahmad wants to know, when will we have
I can't
plums?
answer right now. Most of the plums are gone. I will be looking at it. I might have one or two, but I'm still
Okay.
trying to.
The way our fruit tree program works is our tree order for next year will go in next month. So we order them 10 months in advance, and they come to us, and we pretty much just sold out.
Yeah, we really did. We'll try to bring more. And some of the trees they weren't available. They couldn't give us the quantities we asked for. So we're working with that. There are some of the varieties we just did not get the quantities we asked for.
Yeah. Kelly Frampton, how often should I foliar feed?
And Sally has the same question.
Every other week?
Foliar feeding is best on a bi-weekly schedule. You're going to use Sol and Essence most of the year, and you'll use Sol and Noble Gills right before the flowering. It'll give for the 2 foliar feedings before it starts to bud out and flower. That'll give it the boost that it needs to get a really good flower session.
Yeah, every 2 weeks we suggest foliar feeding, and there's
every month.
Go ahead.
Every month we're recommending a drench.
Okay, and we have that foliar and drench and fertilizing calendar when you purchase something off of our website. It comes with it. Carol's in Portland. Does she fertilize on the same schedule? Probably not the granular. So here in February, our trees are budding out. So you want to probably fertilize 4 times, Carol. Fertilize when they start to bud out.
You're going to do that, and then in the middle of I guess you're going to have to compare the schedules for your area. We're specializing here for fertilizing granular.
Nylene says, I have a pomegranate tree that I haven't planted as you have advised. Can I transplant it? You can transplant it, or check out the link that I put, the YouTube link that I put in the chat box. It talks about how to fix a basin. So you don't necessarily need to transplant it, you just fix the basin. It's actually quite simple, and we have all the stuff for you on that. And we can ship the azomite, mycorrhiza, and worm castings to you.
Yeah. Lucy says, if I have just rock with little to no native soil in the dug up hole, where would be a good place to get native soil? Oof, that's you got to be really careful, because if you're trying to get native soil, a lot of that stuff that's dug up has a lot of other stuff in it. So I would say just basically you're going to want to add, just use planting mix, compost, whatever you can from other areas in your yard. Try to stay in your own yard if you can. Austin says, will we have tree wraps at the pop-up? Yes, we will. Buy 3, get 1 free.
Oh, nice. Oh, you did that on the tree wraps as well?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, look at you go. And you didn't get my permission.
Oh, yes, I did. You just forgot. You were sleeping.
Oh, there you go. This is what, because she's the boss, you see. All right. Pauline says, I can't plant a peach tree for 2 more weeks. Do I wait until next year, or is there something else we can do before the hole is ready? So if you're picking up the tree from us, pick it up in 2 weeks. We have
Right.
all of your trees. So if you've ordered bare root trees from us, we have them what's called healed in. I don't know why I did the air quotes. That's stupid. We have them healed in, which means their roots are covered with this nice soil that we get from tanks. And so, yeah, if you can't pick it up for 2 weeks, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. And you can schedule your pickup. We are doing scheduled pickups. It is great because staffing is a bit of a challenge this year with people's schedules. Some of our existing staff have moved out or they're not able to work for us. So I'm trying to limit the number of people that show up at one time so that we're not overwhelmed. The way you do that is you go for pickup, local pickup at our nursery, go to theurbanfarm.as.me/pickup, and you can
Really?
select from those times.
You expect people to type that down that quick?
theurbanfarm.as.me/pickup. It's also, if you go to fruittrees.org, there will be links there, and there's a link on your emails, and there's a link on the store site. I put that link in a lot of different places. So,
Okay.
How high can or should soil level be on citrus trees? Just covering the roots. You don't want it going up the trunk. You want it to just cover the roots. You know, our trees, if you have a graft point, that's where the two versions of the tree are going to be connecting. That is too deep. You need to be down here by the roots. If you can see my picture, here's the roots, here's the graft point.
Okay, that link is in the chat box.
Thank you.
Rana wants to know, do the native trees rob fruit trees of water?
Not at all.
No, not so much. You might find that the native trees, once you start watering your fruit trees, the roots will kind of start heading your way, but they're real cooperative. There doesn't seem to be much problem with that.
What does rob your trees of water would be grass. Grass is the #1 robber of water for trees.
Yeah. Marguerite says, do you recommend cutting the leader branch to about 3 feet to keep the peach tree small? We've already done that for you in most cases. 3 to 4 feet is what we do. And we have a whole class on backyard orchard culture and keeping your trees small. So Margarita, go to the member site and log in, and there's some classes in there on that.
Now, people are asking again, what email address? If you are sending an email to Greg for like consult on a tree situation, it would be fruittrees with an S @urbanfarm.org. If you have a question about scheduling, or maybe you have a problem with your order that's already been placed, it is fruittreesingular@urbanfarm.org.
Christine
Put something
says,
catchy in the subject line.
yeah. Christine says, if a Brazilian pepper tree died and was later replaced by an almond tree which died, is there a possibility that the spot, it could be the spot in your yard. And it depends who's planting it. You know, some of the local nurseries don't do a very good job of planting them, and they have a bad reputation for planting trees and killing them. So it could be that, or it could be how they were planted, you know. So sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. You might shoot me a picture of the area.
You can also look up and get a soil test if you're really, really concerned. EAS Labs, is that what it is? Or is it IAS?
IAS Labs, but here's the problem with that. With testing the soil, what are you going to test for? If the soil's polluted, there are hundreds of things that you could test for, and you could spend thousands of dollars on doing
That's
that.
true.
So I am not a fan of soil tests, because what are you going to test for?
Yeah.
Carolyn says, we have mature but healthy pecan trees, haven't had any fertilizer since Mr. Baker died. Rest in peace, Mr. Baker, one of my mentors. Is there any fertilizer you could recommend? Yes, either of the fertilizers that we sell. They're a good organic fertilizer. So
Yep. Organic fertilizers, if you are not in the Phoenix area and you don't have access to something, you can get a small tanks super mix, we'll ship that. But if you want a bigger dose, try to find something organic that's local to you. Here we have BioFlora, amazing product. Greg's been using it and recommending it for years.
20 years.
And 20 years. And as a smaller package, we've got tanks for super mix. Also,
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about BioFlora. BioFlora is put out by a company called Global Organics. They're out in Goodyear, and they don't sell to consumers. We're buying this at the farm level. So we're getting 2 tons, 4,000 pounds in bags tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And
thanks.
right. And so we always have plenty for you. And it's very, for an organic fertilizer, it's very inexpensive. Diana says this last year I used 70% shade screen as was recommended in class, but the trees didn't grow very much. And Janice said it was too much shade.
70%.
Should I have used 50% or even less? Send me a picture. I know I'm going to get a lot of pictures. I'll get up super early in the morning and answer them. But it could be too much shade. You may not need shade anymore once your trees are established.
Citrus trees are important to also make sure that you're shading the trunk. If you have a tree that has the trunk exposed, that is going to be sensitive. It can actually get sun scald or it can be sunburned because the trunk is very thin. And we recommend using tree wrap or something else to protect your citrus trees. Ideally, if you can let your citrus trees grow low like a bush, it'll provide its own shade to the trunk. And the same actually for the rest of our trees. If they grow low, they'll provide their own shade to the trunk because the trunks they're gonna get cooked here in Phoenix and our surrounding area. They just are going to be challenged big time by what we have in store for the next few years. As you can see by the weather that's going across the nation, there's going to be a lot of surprises. The surprises we tend to get end up being long, hot heat. So let's just be prepared for it. Give your trees the most nutrition they can and the proper watering to make sure they've got a good, healthy root system and they've got the nutrients that they need to be able to protect themselves from pests and from weather.
So I just put the granular link for our granular fertilizer in the shopping cart. I'm sorry, in the shopping cart. The link to our shopping cart in the chat box. And then I'll drop the Foliar one in there as well. Let's see here.
Roxanne has a question.
Joselli said, hello, thought it started at 6:05 or 6 o'clock. That's in California time. So yeah, you are a little late, but there is a recording. So
there's a recording. We'll send out a link and you can also find it in the fruit tree area.
Yeah.
Roxanne says my tree is in grass. So how do I gauge that? Roxanne, send us a picture. We need to see how much grass you have. Grass tends to create problems especially with the younger trees because the roots of the younger trees aren't strong enough to outcompete the roots of the grass.
Yeah, but what'll help a lot is foliar feeding. Because foliar feeding, basically, if we haven't said it, basically you take a liquid fertilizer and you spray it on the tree, foliar.
We'll talk about it more, but the tree opens up, it breathes, and it takes it in, and it goes right to where it needs it. Cool. Marie, what type of canopy does a new bare root tree have? None. Our bare root tree has, when it came in, we got trees that the roots were cut. In the process of digging them up, the roots were cut. They were pruned, basically. So we matched the top to the bottom so that the tree has the most healthiest advantage place to be to start from when it starts in your yard. If you have too big of a tree on the top and too little roots, it's unbalanced and it won't survive. So we did a lot of healthy examination of our trees. We rejected a few that weren't going to be healthy enough or they had some damage in transport. And what we have left are the trees of a size that'll give you a good start.
Yay. All right. So Susanna has one question. I think we're done. I need some food and we need to get ready for tomorrow. Suzanne, what type of material do you use for a trunk? It's a fabric, a thin fabric. And yes, we have tree wrap, lots of it. All right.
Yes. Again, emails, fruittrees@urbanfarm.org for Greg, fruit tree, no S, @urbanfarm.org for me. I'll take care of your orders. Greg will take care of your tree questions.
Yep. Thank you so
And if
much.
you have any appointments, we'll see you soon.
Have a good one. See you in the
you.
next few weeks.
Yeah.